Across all 6 episodes of Wallace and Gromit's World of Invention, there's a combination of references to past films, interesting details, and hidden Easter eggs throughout. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at everything I managed to find. In episode 1, titled Nature Knows Best, and every subsequent episode, we see Wallace's slide contraption that's appeared in the majority of the previous films. This time it's adapted for the new World of Invention show, which is apparently canon within the Wallace and Gromit universe, with a sign formerly reading "to basement" being crudely crossed out and replaced with "studio". So this studio is allegedly set up in the same place as the sheep murdering machine from A Close Shave and the rocket from A Grand Day Out, which actually leads us on to the next reference. Episode 2 is titled Reach for the Sky and focuses on inventors in the real world trying to successfully launch rockets. So naturally, Wallace shows off his own pride and joy.
That's why I keep mine spaceship shape and Bristol fashion.
Being, of course, the original orange rocket from A Grand Day Out. This marks its one and only subsequent appearance following the original short on screen. And I'm pretty sure it's the original prop too, as I've seen it displayed elsewhere with the characters in exhibits, etc. But it's great to see the retro rocket alongside the modern Wallace and Gromit character models, which have undergone quite the transformation since their debut in 1989. My first reaction to seeing the rocket was, oh, so Wallace canonically just kept the rocket, he's had it all this time. But then Wallace inadvertently launches the rocket, not noticing Gromit trapped inside. Both him and the rocket are blasted into orbit when Gromit manages to eject himself from the capsule, parachuting safely back to the basement, presumably through that hatch that opens up, which is another cool detail. Wallace finally realises that his rocket is missing, still failing to notice that Gromit has narrowly avoided death and instead accuses him of taking it. Since the rocket never returns from the flight and there's no one to pilot it, its canonical status is now presumed deceased. In episode 3, titled Home Sweet Home, we're introduced to Wallace's latest invention, the LAD, or LAD. Short for Labour Assisting Device, obviously named as such to undermine Gromit, but if you haven't noticed already, the robot is very clearly a parody of a Dalek from Doctor Who, the distinctive eye stalk being the most notable aspect, which is actually a telescope, along with 2 flashing lights on either side of its domed head. Later in the episode, an altercation with Gromit leads to the lad with a mug over its telescope, which causes it to go blind and bump into things. This is notably the single vulnerability of a Dalek, which is capitalised on many times throughout Doctor Who. With both shows being icons of British culture, there's several other examples of similar references, such as in cracking contraptions and more prominently in the second Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon. But that's worthy of its own video. What differentiates the lad from a Dalek is that it has arms, bearing a large similarity to the cougar from A Grand Day Out. It's possible that Wallace took some inspiration from his encounter with this sophisticated contraption on the moon. The lad has since made a surprising reappearance in a trailer for the augmented reality mobile game Wallace and Gromit: The Big Fix-Up, wherein it seems loyal to Wallace once more. And additionally, a behind the scenes look at the game reveals concept art for the Big Lad, which is a lot beefier and less Dalek looking. So we'll see if he makes the final cut or not. The 4th episode, titled Come to Your Senses, has Wallace reference a family member, being his gran, who he alludes to having since passed away.
My old gran used to say, Wallace, you've got no sense, you daft ha'porth. Well, I don't know what she was on about, bless her, because I have. 5, to be precise.
This is significant as it's the only instance I can ever recall of Wallace's family being mentioned. There's nobody else in the framed pictures around the house besides Wallace and Gromit, even as a young man and a puppy as we see in the Curse of the Were-Rabbits opening. The only purpose the line serves is to make a joke about sensors, so I'm certain that we wouldn't have heard this in a traditional short film, for example, as I feel as though it breaks the immersion of the Wallace and Gromit universe. When you think about it too much, that is. In the 5th episode, titled Better Safe Than Sorry, we see Gromit beaten to a pulp throughout, as a direct result of Wallace's apparent oblivious behaviour, although it gets to a point where Wallace is essentially plotting Gromit's fate in unsuspecting and straight up malicious ways, which is all of course to demonstrate the importance of safety, though Wallace's behaviour here comes across as borderline evil by the end of the episode.
Oh dear. Gromit was so busy with that banana skin, he didn't notice I'd coated the second step in chip fat.
I get that Wallace has often been dismissive of Gromit at times, but this is usually due to the requirements of the plot and is often resolved, whereas here it just seems a tad overdone. Oh, and after Gromit gets a whiff of some stinking Archbishop cheese, this happens.
Oh well.
The juxtaposition of Gromit's lifeless body lying on the floor, with the cheerful music playing as the end credits roll, reminds me of something you'd see in a creepy YouTube video. But the final thing I want to bring to your attention is not from the show itself, but instead Harry Hill's TV Burp, which was a comedy program in which presenter Harry Hill would take a humorous look back at the previous week of programs aired on British television. In Series 12, Episode 8 of the series, Harry Hill remarks that Wallace and Gromit are back on our screens, in World of Invention, which is followed by this sequence. And on that note, I hope you've enjoyed my recent coverage of World of Invention. If you did, feel free to check out my Wallace and Gromit playlist for more content like this. Any likes, and especially subscribers, would be greatly appreciated.
Oh, that's torn it. I think I've bent me tube.